Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Bethany, and on this channel we talk about the false beliefs taught to women inside of the church, and we also shine a light on problematic behaviors of Christian influencers. So if any of that resonates with you, please like this video, share, subscribe, come follow me here on Instagram, and be sure to sign up for the Outspoken X-Fundy newsletter so you can receive videos 12 to 24 hours early before they go public. So today we have our first deconstruction story. So in past videos I've said, hey, submit your church horror story, your experience, whatever that might be. And because I shared my deconstruction journey a few videos ago, I would love to hear your deconstruction story as well, so we can all just be, together in this, because when you first are deconstructing, it's pretty lonely. So I'd love to tell y'all other people's deconstruction stories and not just my own. And we have our very first today. Buckle up, kitty cats, because this is a long one. My deconstruction story. My faith has been a big part of my life for 2 decades. From when I decided to give my life to Jesus when I was 11 to now. I can look back and say that I had some good times, youth group lock-ins, and VeggieTales and pizza. Going to a Christian school up until my junior year of high school. Looking back, I in a way felt sheltered from the outside world. Even though my parents were in ministry, my parents weren't really strict. Wow. I think it was the Christian influences around me that made me feel at times safe, but at the same time, I feel like there was a part of my childhood that I could never get back. Samesies. Like most kids who grew up in Christianity, I went to Christian school my whole life up until my sophomore year of high school. I remember the chapel services, the worship nights, the altar calls. At one time I recall falling on my face at church camp, crying myself to sleep, but that's neither here or there. Again, samesies. I got baptized at an early age, and when I look back, my decision was driven out of fear, 100%. My aunt died when I decided to give my life to Jesus. I remember telling my dad that I didn't want to go to hell. That same weekend, I got baptized, and the rest is kind of history. I'm so sorry about your aunt. That's terrible. As time went on, going to Christian school up until high school did, in a way, shelter me from the outside world. But I still like to watch Disney Channel, and I still watch cartoons. But in the car, it was always Christian music. On the way home from church, it was Christian music. On the way home from basketball practice, Christian music. For a decade, that's all I've really known. Yup. I thought that if I do all these things for God, I'll get what I want. Maybe if I just prayed harder, sung louder, read my Bible every day, it became performative. I felt like me being a Christian was the equivalent of me being a paid actor. Maybe that was little too harsh. LOL. That was a good comparative. That was a good comparison. Jesus. Let's just say that I felt like a consumer. And mentally, this messed me up. I over-spiritualized oh my god, dude. I over-spiritualized red flags and dismissed them using my faith in God as an enabler. Bro, that is so beautifully put, and absolutely 100%. We all know the effect of drugs. Okay, great. We all know the effect of drugs. You get that initial high, and you'll do anything to get that feeling back. In my observation in Christianity, we use the term mountaintop experiences. Yep. And in the valley experiences too. If you grew up in the church, you remember hearing stories about Moses or Jesus or these biblical characters. But I think in my generation, we can confuse mountaintop experiences with God. There's nothing wrong with them. I've been a part of them, but it can be easy to identify with the experience by not knowledge. I'm confused. I've been a part of them, but it can be easy to identify with the experience, but not acknowledge God. Okay, I see. I ran to mountaintop experiences and mistook them for God. Oh, interesting. I can say that because I was one of those kids listening to worship music constantly, but deep down, I forgot about my deep-rooted insecurities and my issues. Interesting. I used my faith as an enabler. Christian culture was my drug. What? That's such a interesting way to put that. So I want to presume that in terms of my faith, I am a recovering addict. I was in a bubble, which was safe. But as I got older, meaning once I went to college the first 2 years, I was really sold out for Jesus. But the last 2 years, I was on the fence if I identified with being a Christian at all. It was a very scary time for me, and not a lot of my friends knew. This is the first time that I'm being open about this on a public platform. Oh my God. Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. Okay. Blah, blah. Wonderful for you, and I'm truly honored that I'm able to read this for you. For the first... Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. Thank you for trusting me and telling your story. I hope I'm doing a good job. Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. Okay. This is the first time that I'm being open about this on a public platform because I'm not scared or intimidated about what people have to say. I'm not even scared of losing friends who are Christian. Okay. Bethany, get your shit together. I'm just searching for clarity, and I believe that in my adolescence, in more developmental years, in my high school years, even in my college years, I can honestly say that I used my faith to hide my insecurities. I used my faith to wear a mask. I used my faith to hide the pain. People would invite me to parties and clubbing, and I would lie and say that I had homework, but I really didn't. I just hid behind my faith. 100%. I feel compared to share that. I apologize for portraying this image of a forward-facing Christian, and that wasn't a great representation of who I was and who I am. Looking back, I think it was expected of me. I put up a lot of Christian content, worship music, Christian content on my Instagram stories. I think shame is damaging, dude. Yep. It can make a person think that they have no value. I was in this deep place for a few years, deep enough to where I contemplated taking my own life. I'm so sorry. Which means I had thoughts that included that I didn't want to be here. I had excessive mood swings and many breakdowns. I just didn't want to be here. I don't want people to use this to draw conclusions about me that aren't true. I'm not the same person I was 3 years ago. I got the help I needed. I went to therapy and became more with people who challenged my beliefs and what led me to this place. This valley. See? The valley. Yep. Valley in the mountaintop, dude. Shame from my faith made me feel bad about myself, and I got to a point where I didn't want to be here. In church spaces, when you hear about sin and shame and how we are broken constantly, that can have a negative effect on how you view your self-esteem. Yeah. Why don't they know this? How can they not know this? Hearing about how I am sinful and dirty, that blank really gets to you. I think you are meaning that shit really gets to you. I'll fill in the blank for you. In therapy, I remember revisiting what led me to almost taking my own life. The thoughts and feelings about not wanting to be here. I think in Christianity, the topic of mental health can have stigmatization. Wow, that's a hard word for me. Stigmatization. Is that right? Some evangelicals or fundamentalists think that having depression and anxiety can be seen as demonic. Yep, and even Down syndrome. Like, and autism. Really? I even contemplated if I wanted to go to therapy. Christians made it seem like therapy counseling is a form of betraying God. 100%. And even like personal development books that aren't scripturally, like biblically driven, who are written from a secular standpoint. I think the important part is that I sought out help. Yes, I went to therapy and I got the help I needed. Therapy. Shame brought me to this place where I began to think less of myself. Yep, and repress my feelings, and I decided to seek out counseling and therapy so I wouldn't make a decision that would break the hearts of so many people that know me and love me. I don't see my departure as me putting my faith away with my toys. I do see some validity with what I was taught in that foundation as well. In some ways, foundationally, my faith, meaning Christianity, kept me grounded and gave me a sense of purpose. Sure. Now, if someone were to walk up to me and ask, are you a Christian? My response would be, I'm still trying to figure that part out, mainly because I don't think to say if you're a Christian or not is a yes or no question. There's a level of nuance because anyone can say that they are Christian. Most people are going to ask why, meaning people will look for a one-word answer. You left the church because you were offended by a pastor, or you weren't seen, or your pastor had moral failures. Those are blanket statements that are not true about the process and experiences people go through who do construct their faith. Thank you. Absolutely. There are so many people, so many Christian influencers like Girl Defined, Paul and Morgan, and Brittany Dawn who think if you are deconstructing your faith and really asking questions, it automatically means that you didn't really have a relationship with God in the first place, or your feelings were just hurt, so you left the church. No, that's not it at all. There was a gradual process that led me to this point of my life where everything I knew had questions. The way I was raised, the way I grew up, and for most of us who grew up in Christianity, is valid and at times necessary. The pain I faced was unreal. It was intense. And I understand that growth has a gradual process that does not happen overnight. I understand that some people who have seen me as a forward-facing Christian, I can't be that anymore. Because of the people that follow me, I understand the responsibility of the words I say and how I communicate how I'm feeling. I want to be honest and say that it was hardly reading my Bible. I had podcasts and sermons saved on my phone when I was in the crisis with my faith. Yep, I can't tell you how many times I downloaded and re-downloaded the Bible app and worship music. This is who I am, and I'm no longer afraid of the pain. It's made me who I am, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of who I'm becoming. I am learning to forgive, not just forgive the authority figures. Yes, good job. High five. High five you. Not just forgive the authority figures that took advantage of my impressionability, but forgiving myself for the immense pressure I put on myself to be this forward-facing Christian. It was exhausting, and I'm just now learning how to breathe. I used to put up so much Christian content, but at times I ask, what am I doing? I am at a point where my life is the best representation of how I live out my faith. I don't need to post things to prove things. Can you tell that to literally every Christian influencer, like ever? For a decade of my life, I'd be lying to you if I said church was something I looked forward to. I think that had an effect on my relationship with God. Up to this point, my faith has been more about religion than anything else. In all honesty, I never really felt that I fit in with the friends that were Christian. It just so happened that because of my background of being in Christian school and growing up in the church, I always knew what to say. I think dating and meeting women was very hard for me. I felt that I could never be authentic as a Christian. I felt that I was trying too hard. I felt like, as silly as this sounds, I tried to be this archetype of what a Christian guy was supposed to be, but at times felt inadequate because I've had experiences in my life that made me question and doubt people's motives and intentions in spaces like church. I just try to be self-aware enough to know that this culture was damaging and detrimental. I think that in every institution, say higher learning, government, arts, even religion and church, every institution has flaws and needs reform. The reason why I think people are leaving the church is not because they hate God. No, you're absolutely correct. I think that for everyone, their story is different. For some, it may have been language. For others, sadly, were taken advantage of by a leader. For others, like my situation, have been in the church for so long that church became less of a relationship with God and more performative. When I got baptized, to be honest, I was just trying not to go to hell. Dude, I'm right there with you. Prior to when I got baptized, one of my relatives died, and as an 11-year-old, I was scared. Ultimately, young people, I feel, don't really know and understand what salvation means cognitively. Do I regret my salvation? No, but the tactics to lead me there, I do. I feel like I gave my life to a religion and not Jesus. I grew up in church, went to conferences, retreats. Even when I was a college athlete, I joined FCA. But deep down, I felt like a phony because I felt like I was faking it, trying to fit in with other Christians. In this process of I have been analyzing my faith. I started to question the validity of my salvation. Was I a Christian? Was it all in vain? Was it just for show? I don't think that having these thoughts were the devil, but deep questions that I avoided to ask. Questions I feared. It was more of a say it so type of a moment. Oh, say it ain't so. I understand. I fear it was more of a say it ain't so moment. Okay. I didn't want to question because I was afraid. I was scared that it may have been true. Like I mentioned before, I went through a dark time, and my circle of Christian friends didn't show, and honestly, who could blame them, never spoke up about it. I think this was the first time I've been vocal about it. Like I said earlier, I used my faith as an enabler, which also meant not being honest and truthful about my pain. Me actually opening up actually saved my life. Just speechless. Wonderful for you. I've been a part of a service project in rebuilding a church for community outreach. In the beginning stages, the foundation was rigid and fragile, which was a great representation of what my faith looked like. Rigid, not substantial. Now I am trying to build my faith back up so I can stand on something that is going to sustain me. I think that ultimately I am still trying to hang on to my faith. I'm still trying to view God in a different way. I never left God. I doubted people who represent Him, which is the reason why I left church culture. At times, Christian influencers, mainly talking about our generation, get a bad rap. When people get on stages in front of people, keep in mind they are a representation of Christianity. Will they relate to all of us? No, of course not. But that's why Christian influence culture can be somewhat of a virus. It can make Christianity seem like climbing a corporate ladder. In my perspective, kids around the age of, say, 16, 18, 25 on up, they are impressionable. There are things that they just do not understand because they are not in an age where they can think critically and use discernment or even have the self-awareness. When a celebrity comes to the faith, it's an interesting thing to watch. I've seen people follow them rather than following God, almost buying someone else's faith. This is why I said earlier that young people are impressionable. I never said gullible or naive, but being impressionable, if not careful and if not self-aware, oftentimes people can be misled. It's almost It's almost as if we treat celebrities as a trend rather than a person that's growing. In my perspective, Christianity in America has become more of an aesthetic on Instagram rather than a lifestyle people claim to live. It seems like every time I get on social media, everybody's a pastor. And this is not me bashing. This is my perspective. I have evaluated this space for a while now, and I practically grew up in it. And it has not just had an effect on me, but other Christians who are not self-aware enough to understand the damage it may be doing to them internally. I'm not going to blame the church, but when you hear you're not a real Christian, I think language is really important. What you say has real world implications on people's lives. Even if meant with good intent, can cause so much damage. My mom used to say that. Life and death are in the power of the tongue. She was right. Growing up, I heard about the term deliverance, being delivered from something. I would get in theological debates with my parents or even people. I knew I would hear the constant theme, I hope God delivered you from that. For me, I love language and nuance and deep conversations, and I'm naturally curious. A lot of times people in the Christian community would flip that on me and see it as something I would be delivered from rather than celebrating me. I think about some of my friends who are gay or who identify with being trans. Their whole life they have been told, I hope God delivers them from that behavior or lifestyle, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought the whole goal was so that they look more like Jesus, not trying to make them straight so they feel more comfortable. I think a lot of times when we make these life-altering realizations, people can assume that you woke up one day and decided that you were not a Christian anymore, or that you just woke up gay or trans or whatever you identify with. That does not happen. Momentum ultimately leads us to the decisions and realizations that we make. It's not our feelings, it's just life. We gradually evolve into the people we are becoming, and that's a part of life. In Christian spaces, when it comes to deliverance, sometimes Christians use the terms to try and change people into a version of what they want them to be, but on the contrary, hoping they become the best versions of themselves God made them to be. Sometimes Christians can be cringe, and I think that is mainly due to the fact that, speaking for me, when I heard the verse, do not be like the world, I think that ultimately had an effect on my social life, meaning all my life, all I knew was Christian. It's the language I spoke, but really it was a mask. But in my early Christian days, I remember an instance where I told one of my leaders that I wanted to start doing yoga. Oh no. Before you know it, he sends me all this different articles and stuff backing why yoga was demonic. I don't think yoga is demonic. I think meditation and breathing is really helpful. Some Christians denominationally sometimes believe that anything outside of Christian music is evil and demonic. That's how I was raised. I would have to disagree, but I use this example to share that I didn't even know myself. My faith was my life, but it also controlled my life. The way I thought, what music I listened to, movies, whatever I took in. I do believe that we should be cautious of how much information and content we take in, but in my experience, there is a lot of self-righteousness attached to it as well. The feeling of holier than thou, it wasn't me reinforcing these ideas, it was leaders and youth pastors enabling this mindset. Yep. Like, I remember in my youth group, the pastor said, "You're here on a Friday night while the rest of the kids your age are partying. The party is really in here." Jeez. This was a youth lock-in, and I have my thoughts about youth lock-ins, LOL. But it goes back to my point, which is shame. But looking back now, maybe going out maybe would have been the best idea, responsibly though. I was closed off when I was deep in my faith. I said no to a lot, especially social gathering. I didn't have my first drink until now. Responsibly though, getting drunk is not a good look in my opinion. People become self-righteous when they lack knowledge or understanding about a specific topic. They may feel they need to defend their beliefs at all costs, even if they don't know much about the subject. People generally believe that God loves them, but often do not experience love from people who know Him and believe in Him. It makes me frustrated that Christians always feel the need to respond to cultural experiences that they themselves have no background in. Hold on to something that is going to sustain you. Some of us need to evaluate our why. Our why will reveal who we are. We need to be okay with letting things go, but it's okay to hold on to things that got us where we are. I may leave Christianity. I don't know if I will come back. Does that mean I'm lost? Not at all. I never knew who I was when I was in deep faith. I had no self-awareness. Oftentimes, I was in positions where I was vulnerable and impressionable, which led me to being manipulated and misled. I'm glad that on this journey, I have an understanding now of who I am. Wow. And that last sentence, that is so important, because so many Christians say that you don't know who you are until you know Jesus Christ or have a relationship with Jesus Christ. And so when you do start deconstructing, you have an identity crisis, because all your life you're told that, number one, your heart is evil and your truth is not God's will. Like, you have to stay in God's will, and who you are is not the same person. That can be very scary when you're deconstructing, because now, like, who are you? And so you have to understand, you have to honestly relearn who you are, because your identity has been in this one figure your whole entire life. Thank you so much for sending this in. It was very, very long, but I enjoyed reading it. If you have your deconstruction journey or a church horror story that you would like to have me read on the channel, please look in the description box below and you'll find the link there. I would love to shine a light on your experiences for the very first time, or you've been deconstructing for a while. I always appreciate shining a light on your story, on your experience. So if you have anything that you would like for me to read, go in the description box. But other than that, always remember that you're a fierce and powerful motherfucking person, and I appreciate you so very much, and I am proud of you. I truly am. Okay, I'll see you the next time. Bye.